This case was recorded by Cicero in the 1st century BC. Rome, which was already an old city, was traditionally thought of as having been built around 7 small hills, one of which was Caelian Hill, quite an upmarket and fashionable area. It was also a convenient place for augurs to do their work. Augurs observed natural phenomena, particularly the behaviour of birds, and interpreted these as indicating the will of the gods. The augurs' interpretations were taken very seriously in Rome, and the augurs were important officials. Tiberius Claudius Centumalus owned a building on Caelian Hill, but parts of it were in the way of the augurs, so they could not see the birds in flight. The augurs instructed Claudius to pull down those parts of the building which were in the way. Instead, he sold the building to Publius Calpurnius Lanarius without letting on that the augurs had issued their command. Cicero tells us, when Calpurnius had pulled down those parts of the building and discovered that Claudius had advertised it for sale only after the augurs had ordered them to be pulled down, he summoned the former owner before a court of equity to decide what indemnity the owner was under obligation in good faith to pay and deliver to him. The verdict was pronounced by Marcus Cato, who was presiding judge, and pronounced the verdict that since the augur's mandate was known to the vendor at the time of making the transfer, and since he had not made it known, he was bound to make good the purchaser's loss. With this verdict, he established the principle that it was essential to good faith that any defect known to the vendor must be made known to the purchaser. A number of important modern legal concepts relate to this case. The most obvious is fraudulent misrepresentation in contract law. Claudius, by his silence, effectively represented that the buildings and the land could continue to stand as they were, but he knew this was not true. The case also builds up the concept of good faith, which still underpins much of contract law. Finally, in this case, we see a court of equity, where a person could go if they had been wronged, but there was no written law to protect them. The DNA of so much of our modern law can be traced back to ancient Rome.